That all-important shift that opens up the window for a referendum on Cape independence, it's going to most likely, in fact it has to, come from the coloured population, because the coloured population are hands down the biggest voting bloc in the Western Cape. They're the communities that are most disenfranchised and prejudiced against by the ANC policies, which the DA complies with. And yeah, it's gonna have to be a team effort from everyone who calls the Cape home to get us across the finish line. Yeah.
Gail, you had a question.
This might be an unfounded fear, but you were all saying how quickly things change, that certain accelerators happen, as Peter likes to say. And in 6 months, the world has changed from the 7th of October. I was actually unfortunate enough to be on the Sea Point Promenade on the 15th of October, when Christians were meeting for a prayer meeting. And we were actually broken up into groups. We couldn't even stand together. We had our backs against the balustrade and were having hordes spitting at us, sticking their fingers in our faces. It was a horrendous thing. And I'm just wondering how, because this is a Muslim stronghold, or the most Muslims are in the Western Cape. And I kind of fear that the coloured vote would go with the Palestinian kind of side of things. And you know, we know, I think Iran also might, they could also be persuaded this is the jewel of Africa. And what about something like that scenario?
Dr. Corne, would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, sure. I want to respond to this and also just refer to the previous question about the coloured community. Things are changing overnight and we will need partners in this process to get to independence. And as the colleagues correctly pointed out, the coloured community is the biggest community in the Western Cape. So I'm looking from a political perspective, what's happening. And there's a gentleman who some people like, some people love and some people hate in the coloured community. And he's a gentleman called Gayton Mackenzie. And he found his own party called the Patriotic Alliance. And at the moment, the DA doesn't want to have anything to do with Gayton. I was in a meeting where I asked Helen Zidder, do you have an answer to put up against Gayton? And the answer was no. And I have no doubt that the Patriotic Alliance is making huge inroads in the traditional support of the Democratic Alliance in the coloured community at the moment. You can look at by-election results, you'll see them. There's next week another by-election in Duisseldorf, where the Patriotic Alliance will take a ward from the ANC. And Gayton's message is very simple. He says to the coloured community, he says, in the past you had a white government and it did not suit and help us. We've now had a black government, it didn't suit us. It's time that we start to look after ourselves. And that message is resonating amongst many people. Our challenge is that at this stage, Gayton is not a supporter of Cape independence. So our challenge is to try and get the message across, and it's not impossible. We need strong people with support also in that community. I'm not saying there are not others, there are others as well. So that's just the first point. If I come to since the 7th of October, yes, it's true that we've got the largest concentration of the Muslim community is in the Western Cape. But it is technically, I don't have exact figures, we can have a look. In terms of the broader coloured population, it's rather a small part of the coloured population, the Muslim community. Secondly, I was once, when ISIS was at the height of its power, and all kinds of terrorist things happened. I flew up to Joburg one day, and there was a lady seated just next to me with very traditional Muslim clothing. And it's just normal instinct. What could go wrong? Is it possible that we've got a terrorist here? And then she addressed me in perfect Afrikaans. Goeiemiddag, meneer. It's one of our people. It's our own people. You don't be misled by the fact that people are Muslim, that are radical, or that they perceive things like these radical groups to perceive them. Having said that, after the 7th of October, there was a definite attempt by Hamas and Iran and other radicals to radicalize the Muslims in the Western Cape. It's not by any coincidence that you had that demonstration. It's not by any coincidence. There's a video, I sent that to the United States, where one of the most senior people of the ANC in the Western Cape, Muslim guy, is addressing a meeting right there in the boycott. Deaf to America, deaf to Israel. I made sure that the right people take note of that. So there's a definite attempt to try and radicalize. Having spoken about Gayton McKenzie again, on the other side of the coin, he's a very absolute supporter of Israel. Unashamedly so. Standing with Israel, Israel's right to defend itself, etc., etc. That's my position as well. But the point is, yes, we have to deal with that kind of radicalization attempt. But if you look in general, and that's my view, if you look in general at the people of the Western Cape, all of them are good-natured people who want to live in harmony and peace in the Western Cape. It is radicals from outside the province that try to radicalize, be that the EFF leadership, be that from the ANC's perspective, etc. I think really we can go a long way to get the people of the Western Cape to find one another and to take province forward.
Can I ask, in terms of the Christians in the Western Cape, what is the Christian parties? How do they feel about independence?
I'm blunt. The ACDP opposes us in every respect. Why, I don't know.
And there's some other...
No, not really. I don't know. But I know the ACDP is absolutely against the idea of independence. They're absolutely against the idea for referendum.
What is the reason? Did they give a reason?
If I could just say, because I've tried to speak to them about it, they have national aspirations, but a lot of their support comes to the Western Cape, so they feel it would weaken them nationally if they lost the Western Cape vote for them.
But there's no reason to lose the Western Cape vote. People are not stupid, they are reasonable. And it's not a question either again of either or. It's and. But to a very large extent, and I'm honest with you, if the DA goes below 50% and they will need a coalition partner, I can give you a guarantee tonight, their first choice will not be a pro-independence party. They will try to see if they can't survive by taking the ACDP alone. They will try to do that. Because they don't want to be put in a position where they are forced to bring a referendum. And it's unfortunate.
Other questions?
It's nice for us to see you guys sitting united around this table, because the perception out there is that you're fighting like cat and dogs, you know. So I'm just saying outside there, you know, maybe it's not like that, and we're glad it doesn't look like it. But the reality is that your average Western Caper has no clue what you guys are saying. That there is a possibility. There's a lack of knowledge, you know, and you need to address that, because I only found out recently that I should sign into the site with Des and them, you know, I only found that out. What could we do? People are saying, you know, what should we do? So nobody's hearing what you guys are saying, very small groups. So you need to somehow address that, you know what I mean? And maybe a book like A Case for Secession in every single household in the Western Cape would help. Because once you hear what you've got to say, we can see the possibility. Yeah. There's hope. You know what I mean? It gives us something, yes, we can do this. But your average guy doesn't think it's impossible. They just say, no, we're going to vote DA or Freedom Front or whatever it is, because it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
So I think your message is getting to very few people, you know, and you've got to change that somehow. You know, you've got to do an information overload through the Western Cape and let every household know that there is a glimmer of hope. And I think you'll see things change.
Could I just say one thing in that response? We are slowly but surely making headway. The mere fact that the DA who opposes what we are standing for has come with a devolution of power bill kind of thing to have devolution. They don't even understand or realize that. Those are steps of self-determination that will devolve and take things further. Why do they do that? Not because they think it's a good idea, because they realize the pressure is starting to build up from the electorate who say, but why can't we do this? Why can't? So that's an attempt by them. Typically what happens, let's give the people this, then they will not go for that. But they don't succeed in delivering this, and they will not succeed in delivering this. So you're right. We have not even spoken tonight about, let's dream for a minute what is possible. Just imagine what kind of country can we create. The best in Africa, the most modern technology, the best ability to absolute excellence. It's possible. But then we need people to just apply their minds and see and think what can be done.
My husband last was the last rally in the coloured communities at large, not just Mitchell's Plain. We lost.
Well, of course, I think everyone would be willing to accept invitations, but somebody's got to.
Oh, well, we were in
organise
retreats 2 weeks ago, so that's us. I don't know about anyone else.
Yeah, we were in Easterothy a couple of weeks ago as well. And I mean, the first main Cape Independence March that took place back in 2020, the first march took place in Cluttersville, which is a coloured community.
May I ask what was the outcome,
very well received, I think.
Yeah, it was very well received, and we saw that in the second march that we did, which took place in Cape Town, where you look at the photos. It was an incredibly diverse crowd. You had a lot of coloured people there. You had black people there. You had people from all different walks of life in the Western Cape in attendance, and it really did present well, what type of Cape we can actually build, one that's based on hope, not just constant fear and despair all the time.
Now, one of you mentioned that some other parties, the marketing strategies are amazing. You did say that they have a strong marketing strategy, so I'm just saying.
It's also a question. It's also a question of funds, money. Let me give an example. Just to give you an example. We've got 9 provinces, 8 of them being governed by the ANC. In all 8 of those, within those legislatures is something called a party political fund, where money is given to political parties to campaign. By some coincidence, where the DA governs, it doesn't exist. They don't create a fund like that. Why? Because then they need to give money to other political parties as well. They don't want to do that. They get their funding from big business. In the last 3 years, the Democratic Alliance received 163 million rand donations from individuals and companies. Now, if you go out to campaign, the cost to put one poster against a poll is exactly the same. Whether you're a big party, whether you're a small party, you need to pay the same amount of money to print that, to buy the hardboard, to get it posted up, and blah, blah, blah. So obviously the DA is in a completely different arena in that, but it's worse. They are not unlike the ANC. At the moment, every morning, you'll hear some ads on the radio by the Premier advertising about the Western Cape government. Not saying any word about the DA, but quite obviously that is the idea. Why suddenly now, in the run-up to the election, ad after ad on the radio, the Western Cape government, and this is how good we are. It's propaganda. It's DA electioneering basically under the guise of the government, and that's exactly what the ANC is doing up north. But the DA is doing exactly the same. They can't blame. And how do they do that? They use taxpayers' money. They've got to pay for those ads in the media with taxpayers' money that people pay. So it doesn't make them any better than the ANC in that regard. But unfortunately, if you talk in terms of demonstration of the whole independence idea, the election is not good for that at the moment. Why? Because parties compete amongst each other and try to get votes, obviously. So I think at the moment the focus to a large extent would be on the individual parties trying to get votes for the parties. But as long as we can have kind of discussions like this, where we know we are all moving towards, I use the example of different armies moving in the same direction. The fight is that way. The fight is not amongst each other all the time. We must move that way and get to the end result.
Perhaps I can throw out a horrific scenario. What about the potential, as we head into this election, that the ANC forms a coalition afterwards with the DA?
Yeah.
Because if we just think in 1999, the National Party, who was colossal, campaigned in the Western Cape, vote National Party for a strong opposition to the ANC. And as soon as they won in 1999, a clear majority, they made a coalition with the ANC. They got a cabinet position for Van Schalkwyk, Court Booker's in charge, and then for the only time the Cape actually fell under control of the ANC was looted and really fell into disrepair. It was shocking. And the National Party destroyed their credibility because their whole credibility was, we are strong opposition to ANC. What is the scenario possibility that, as the ANC said, they will not make a coalition with Mkhonto Wesizwe, who's going to snap up a lot of votes, that they may find they need to make coalition with the DA, and the DA has not ruled out that possibility. What could be the result of that?
No,
because surely then we'd have, the Western Cape would be a debacle.
No, the problem is that at the moment the multi-party charter, the idea of the charter is a pre-election agreement between parties that say that if we succeed in getting a majority, we will form a coalition and govern the country after the election. But we don't know. It will depend on the outcome of the election. And we will only be having some indication when the results start to come in. If we do not succeed in getting a majority, and no party can govern on their own, then there will be some kind of coalition, and the current projections say the ANC will be below 40%. I don't know if that's possible. It could happen. Then the question is, would some of the parties be prepared to go into coalition with the ANC? At this stage, the DA says, no, that will be a worst case scenario, but they keep the door open by saying, to prevent the real worst case scenario where the EFF gets into government with the ANC or Mkhonto, they may step in to try and prevent that. Without spelling it out, they are keeping the door open. So I'm very concerned about that, and I insist the electorate should know before the election that I'm not going to vote for a party that can use my vote to keep the ANC in power. I can't do that. And that's the concern in that instance. So the question may be, let's say it plays out on national level, where some arrangement is found, and the DA says they will go back to their structures and get the support of people to say, we don't want to do this, we've got no alternative, blah, blah, blah. Is it okay? Yes, go and do that. But the risk is that the ANC may turn around and say, okay, fine, we will co-govern on national level. But then, quid pro quo, we as the ANC also want to become part of government in the Western Cape and co-govern with you in the Western Cape. That is a doomsday scenario. And people must understand that that could happen.
That's a very realistic possibility.
It could happen, yeah.
It's not like it hasn't happened before. It was 2 elections ago on GPAT.
Yeah, sure.
On her platform, and on the basis of fighting corruption, and especially in regards with the arms deal. And she won so many votes in the Western Cape. The first thing the DA did was grab her party and give her the mayorship of Cape Town and prop her up there, only to just weasel her out later. But once she was in there, not a word of the arms deal corruption was ever said again. And she ran on the basis of fighting corruption, in particular the arms deal.
Yeah. And we should remember Patricia de Lille, who we call Cruella de Lille, was PAC, and she supported the St. James Massacre. I saw her march in Claremont to the police station demanding the release of the terrorists who had been murdering the people at St. James. And they were chanting, one church, one bomb, one minister, one bullet. I was there, I heard it, and she was part of it, and she's in the front row. And Cruella de Lille goes from the PAC to ID to DA, and then she forms this good-for-nothing party and joins the ANC in the cabinet position anyway. So we've got...
Can you see why I say I just can't see a political solution?
Well, ultimately, we believe in a spiritual solution, ultimately getting back to God. But there has to be a political dimension to solving our problems. It's not the be-all and end-all. Politics, we don't believe in salvation by politics. Nobody does. I mean, I don't think anyone here believes it.
Another example, I was listening to a discussion on a podcast with Corne. I don't know what his surname is, but he does skid marks. Corne was with Advocate Marman, who fought against the lockdowns and stuff before there were vaccines. He was one of the COVID advocates, anti-COVID policy, not anti-COVID, anti the policies that were
right.
And was in court at his own expense. So he got the number of signatures he needed for a party and paid the fees to the IEC, and they just left him off the ballot. They haven't refunded his money and anything. So he's now calling for a total boycott of the. As a pro, they are corrupt. The IEC is corrupt.
There's no doubt the IEC is not balanced or fair, and they're probably corrupt too. But boycotts, I don't think work.
No.
And I just think of the example of 1910. Many South Africans boycotted the elections for the union government 1910. All that happened is they had no influence in the government that came about under Louis Botha. 1994, at least 650,000 white South Africans boycotted the 94 elections. But it just meant there was less representatives of their concerns in the government of 1994 to 1999. So the politics of boycotts doesn't actually help the people who are doing the boycotting.
Correct.
It's extremely self-destructive. You can see why people get frustrated, but don't get mad, get even. It's better if you can
100%.
channel the vote you've got, or in this case we get 3 votes this time. Channel the 3 votes you get in a constructive direction. It's better to light a candle than to curse the darkness. Next question.
So, we've got 41 million people out of a population of 60 million that have got access to internet and are plugged in online every single day. The world average screen time for people spending time on their screens is around 6 hours and 50 minutes. South Africa's screen time is number 1 in the world at just over 10 hours. How much screen time is being taken up by the independence movement for the Cape when people are online and finding you guys compared to anyone else who's not for independence? How much are we utilizing the fact that we've got 10 hours a day of 41 million people spending time on their screens? How much of that time are they actually finding out about Cape independence? And because we've got a panel sitting at this table with knowledge like you cannot believe, and it goes back to what Anthony's saying. How are we getting that to the people? And for me, the one way as a digital marketer, I have to say, is digital platforms. And it doesn't take a lot of money to do that. It just takes dedication and passion from a core group of people within each organization who are going to spend the time to create the content and put it out there and distribute it. How much time of the 10 hours do you guys take up, do you think, of the young people who are online?
Well, would you like to respond?
Yeah, one of the interesting platforms where we've seen an explosion in interest has been TikTok. I think on TikTok, the Cape Independence hashtag, last I checked, got about 11 million views in total. So it's an amazing amount of content. Now, not all of it is positive. A lot of it are critics, but we've got an amazing group of counts that they'll make a post and there'll be a few thousand likes on the post within a few hours. So certainly, and that's a very young audience that you see with TikTok generally. So we are seeing a lot of interest there, and then certainly with the Referendum Party, social media does play a big part in our campaign. Obviously you need the on-the-ground side of things so you can get to voters that don't spend 10 hours online. But social media is a big thing for us, and we're going to be targeting all the main social media platforms in the lead up to this election, most notably Facebook, but also Twitter and TikTok, Google and YouTube. So we're trying to hit all of those platforms in the next 48 days that we've got.
Of course, all viewers are encouraged to use this opportunity to share not only the video of tonight's program, but other posts, the videos and pictures and posts from the different parties represented. So could you each just mention your website online that's recorded for Loving Life TV viewers?
Okay, well look, if you go to referendumparty.org you can find out all about the Referendum Party and what we stand for. But if you want to find us on the social media platforms like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, just search Vote Referendum and you should also find us there.
Yeah, we're available across all platforms. So our website is www.CapeXitParty.com. You can find us on Facebook at Cape Independence Party. You can find us on Twitter at CapeXit Party. You can find us on TikTok, basically all sorts of platforms that basically every social media platform you can find us. I just wanted to touch on what Corne was saying earlier. In fact, that's what my response was going to be as well. Is I don't think people understand just how much money it takes to get into the media, to be able to market the way that the DA does. They've got huge budgets like that, and it's really going to take a grassroots movement. People are going to have to help us help you, and we've been doing this for 17 years, and we found that we definitely fall into a category that Facebook doesn't like. We've had an account there for 17 years, and we've put up posts, and unless you put money behind those posts don't get seen. So it's really up to the community to also take the materials that we're producing on social media and help us boost it, help us push it out there. And it's unfortunately it's not for free, and especially a lot of the social network platforms, Cape Independence doesn't fall into the category of being so socially acceptable. So as I think we know from the American elections, there's all sorts of things that they can tinker with in the background there that throttle the ability for your social media materials to be seen and to go viral. So it really, we need your help to help us get this message out there.
I thought police fact checkers. What is?
I just want to quickly jump back to your question and tie into your question. We are NPO, so we don't have money. We don't have nice budgets to work with. But don't underestimate the power of sharing.
Yeah.
We started with 5 people, we got 840,000 people. That came about not by spending millions, but just by sharing. We've got and the IT guys tells me that's fantastic. We've got an opening rate of 42% on emails. Apparently it is enormously good. So when we move forward now with working with a court and we put it out there, we've got a guaranteed opening rate of 41%. I made a point one day, we had a workshop for 55 coloured community leaders, and I said to them, guys, you must please do me a favour. You must please not be scared to take ownership of your future. Because that's what we find, especially in communities that are not so say electronically connected. And that comes back to education, to get the word out there and share the word. Just share the word out there as you move about every day. That it is possible. Take ownership of where you are and where you want to go to. So you want my website now. This is going to get confusing, because our website is CapeXit.org. And now, with all respect, there is no political party called CapeXit Party. There's a political party called the Cape Independence Party, and that sounds confrontational. Our website is CapeXit.org. We're not a political party. You can't vote for us. So there you've got my website. You can go and read all about it.
A few years ago, it was a huge challenge to communicate any idea because you were forced to use the official media. And if the newspapers ignored you, and they did for many years, you've got no way to get your message across. But that is now changed, dramatically so. You'll see that the readership of newspapers has come down dramatically. They are struggling to survive. Because of internet, because of social media, it is now possible to communicate and get your messages across not only in the country or the Western Cape, internationally. So we must make use of that, and in some extent it's a new field that we all need to embrace fully and make use of all platforms. The party that I belong to, the Freedom Front Plus, we are all platforms, be TikTok, be Instagram, be Facebook. You'll find us everywhere, website, etc. On the sample, you just type in the name VF Plus, written out, PLUS, and you'll find it there. But there are some huge opportunities out there in terms of direct marketing, in terms of direct approaching, and with all due respect, once, if you've got time, go and have a look at the, there's a YouTube video, a movie called The Big Hack, The Great Hack. It's amazing, and that goes back to the 2016 election in the United States, in how Trump used social media to get the message across, with absolute targeted messaging being put out there. And as we move forward with this movement, we will have to get into that specifically and get the message across. And if you look at the Spring Revolution in the Arab world, go and look at what role was played with social media and cell phones, etc., etc. You can simply bypass. It's impossible for governments to control those things. It's impossible for official media to control those things. We will use that as well.
And I'll throw this out as an encouragement, because we here at Livingston House, Frontline Fellowship, we don't have a massive marketing team. We've got a couple of websites, Uncle Peter will tell you exactly how many, and about 30 social channels across various social channels. And when I tell people the reach that we have, and we don't put a cent in sponsorship or any kind of boosting into it, 271 million people reached last year through our platforms on social media. That is insane. Our main website in the last 28 days, 50,000 impressions on the website. And that is only because of passion and dedication and a belief in something. And that's what drives us. And obviously with Dr. Hammond being behind the scenes, and I only say this out of respect, at his age, to drive the way he drives Facebook pages, if we had our younger people with just that much passion for social media in their little finger, you could change the landscape of the country using digital media. No jokes. So that's why I say that, you know. And the thing is, what we've got to remember is that we've got to not just think about people sharing our stuff. How do you get your stuff onto the screens for that person to see, even if they are not part of your brand? You need to know how to manipulate the algorithm in order to get that stuff onto the screens for those people who aren't part of your brand to see it, so that you can widen your footprint. And that's what most people don't get. And that is what I really, really try and stress to every single person that I speak to, every organization, no matter how big or small. If you just know how to post things in the right way for the algorithm to promote you organically onto people's feeds that don't normally see you, you are winning half the battle already. And as an encouragement to you guys, I just say get onto social media and don't just do the small things. Make sure that you are doing how-to videos. You are putting this kind of content with the knowledge that you've got practically into places that people can find it in order to download it, get the resources, and have it on their devices, because we need to have at least a couple of hours of those 10 hours of people looking at really good content and not just nonsense all the time.
And it doesn't have to cost an arm and a leg.
No, it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to.
Thank you for that. If I can just add this point, amongst our pages we've got is the Cape of Good Hope Facebook page, the Cape of Good Hope, that's the Facebook page. Last week on the 6th of April, I posted a series of pictures of Jan van Riebeeck, pointing out this is Cape Town's birthday, 6th of April. It used to be a public holiday, 1652, had the prayer of Jan van Riebeeck, links to some articles, some audios and so on. Had a 16,000 reach from that one page from Cape Good Hope, showing these multiple pictures, and each one had links to other facts or the scriptures or what he prayed for Cape Town back in 1652. And people were interested and they shared it. We've got a website called capeofgoodhope.africa, capeofgoodhope.africa, where we give links also to all the different Cape independence movements and all those represented here, for example. And I'd encourage you, please share these, the webs, the videos, the links, and don't just post a picture. With a picture, put a link to a website or a link to a video or an article or an audio or something more, that if a person's interested by the picture, get drawn into something that gives more meat. You had a question?
Besides the media now, there's another simple way which is very effective, unfortunately, so food. I don't know, do you dish out food when you go and that really helps? A pot of food or a little parcel, a bread, those things are really effective. In those where you maybe feel the people that is not for the media, but do you go, when you go out, you actually do, I'm just asking.
Your mom's got that initiative.
Well, the amount of money we spent in the last 17 years, absolutely, on t-shirts, on providing food, on all sorts of things. Yeah, it would blow your mind. What we have found in certain cases, and it's not just ourselves that have experienced this, but parties will come in and they will spend a large amount of money providing food or t-shirts or things like that, and local residents will take those items and then continue to vote for whoever their original party might be, which is usually the party that gives them, who has consistently given them food parcels and t-shirts. And there hasn't actually been, we found quite a strong correlation between that aspect of handouts and party loyalty, as opposed to supporting necessarily an ideological framework that they believe. I mean, the majority of the Western Cape is Christian, but the ACDP only gets 2 or 3% of the vote. So there's perhaps another good example. The majority of people in the Western Cape support Cape independence, but the Cape Independence Party and pro-Cape Independence parties haven't seen the same sort of numbers. The ACDP, is not a reflection of how many Christians there are in the Cape. So voters tend to vote not necessarily for the reasons that you would intrinsically think might be the case. So, but yes, we certainly have, for 17 years, we've definitely handed out a lot of food parcels and t-shirts, and we'll continue to obviously support communities as much as we can. But yeah, that does come down to budgets, and we're up against monolithic beasts like the DA, who have very big budgets. So,
Okay, we've been going 2 hours. We don't want to stifle a conversation. If there's any more gripping questions, we want to entertain them before we give a chance to each panel member to give a conclusion. Any questions? Burning questions, please.
Thank you for this evening. I just want to ask, how well prepared, as far as your knowledge is the Western Cape for the what if? How well prepared are we as a people of the Western Cape going forward?
You don't have to have the people of the Western Cape prepared for certain eventualities. You have to have certain sectors of the Western Cape prepared. So you've got to assess your potential, where it lies, and there are a lot of people in the Western Cape that plays worst case scenarios, and we don't or try not to walk in the garden and say we keep on smelling roses. I often ask people I state a simple question, that we know exactly how long the borders are and exactly how many entry points there are on the border, and I can assure you very few players on the independent scene will know that. We work with those realities. The average person in the Western Cape is still happily living in his bubble. He's not even worrying about independence or his future, his children. So, but that question would be well placed with a certain sector of the Western Cape. So, and I'm being so vague when I reply to you, but it's intentional. Because, like I said, we sit with advisory panels on everything. We work with realities. And perhaps it comes from the background of being a veteran. We know what the realities are. We are not going, and I live in Tableview, and they had the Army Day one day, and I walked down to the sea to experience the Army Day, and there was one guy I respected. It was a black paratrooper, parabat, spoke Afrikaans, stood next to him. A naval officer came past, he saluted, and when the prayer started, he took his beret off. And I looked at him and I said to him, I respect you. And he looked at me and said, Meneer is a veteraan. I said, yeah. The rest of them were quite useless. I think if we have 3 Basutu ponies, they'll probably take it over. But there are certain realities you have to cater for.
Any other questions? Let me ask each member of the panel then to conclude with your last words that you want to give to.
I want to tell you a story as the last word, and I'm going to do that in Afrikaans because the translation may not sound right. Is that okay?
Business?
Let me try.
No, like that one, business.
No, I refer to the philosopher Søren Kierkegaard. 25 years ago, a book was written by a South African journalist called Z.P. de Tooy. He wrote for Rapport. And the book was called The New Future in Afrikaans. The problem was he was 25 years too early for the people out there in terms of what he said. But the preface to the book was written by a gentleman called Isaac de Villiers. He was at some stage the editor of the Rapport newspaper. He was also a theologian, etc., etc. And in that preface he wrote the following, referred to a fable being told by Kierkegaard. And it goes like this. Voor die agterdeur van 'n boer se plaas het daar 'n klomp gaanse en eende rondgestaan. En hulle daar geloop en eet en hulle is tevrede om daar te staan. En op 'n dag kom daar 'n wilde eend aangevlieg. En hy land tussen hulle. En hy sê vir hulle, julle wat hier staan, hoekom staan julle net hier? Kyk daar buite in die vrye lug. Die wêreld is oop vir julle. Hoekom oefen julle nie julle vlerke en styg op en vlieg na vryheid om julle eie ding te gaan doen? En hulle het mooi na hom geluister en hulle was heeltemal oortuig en beïndruk daarmee. En van die einde begin om hulle vlerke te oefen en te probeer en hulle gaan daar hierdie ding van vryheid. Hulle dis 'n opsie, hulle kan vry wees. En toe kom die boer uit en hy vat sy hand en hy gooi vir hulle weer 'n bietjie mielies op die grond. En die eende en die gaanse eet die eende en bly net daar waar hulle staan. Niemand het gevlieg en gegaan vir vryheid. Maar hulle het ook nie agtergekom dat die boer onder hulle slag en hulle opvreet een vir een. And that's the challenge. That's the problem that we've got. Our people are so ignorant about what we could achieve in terms of being free and independent. It's up to us to get that message across, because if we don't do that, as a minority, we will not survive in Africa. That's all I would say.
I actually want to tie in with that with a very short thing to share, and that is that we are the generation that have to sort this out. Not our children. We have to sort it out.
Jack.
Yeah, that was a beautiful fable, and I think we can all relate to it. And I think the hope that we can have is that the Cape has been around for a very, very long time, and I think it'll be here for a very long time to come. But yes, Des is right, it's up to us. We are at a turning point. I have faith that we will continue to be the Cape of Good Hope. We will continue to plow ahead as we have for 17 years. I hope it's not going to be another 17, but it's going to be up to you guys to help us succeed and achieve this beautiful vision. And for those of you who've traveled to other parts of Africa or other parts of the world, I think that feeling that you get in your chest, that lump in the throat, the water in the eyes when you come back and you come back to Cape Town, to the Cape, and you see Table Mountain, there's nothing like it. And I think when the penny drops, we certainly know from people who live outside of the Western Cape's borders, who see the ANC rule on a day-to-day basis, who see what the EFF is bringing to politics on the ground there. When that reality hits the Cape, that is the point at which Cape independence will happen. Unfortunately, there will be a lot more corruption, a lot more suffering before that happens, but we could be close to that point. But it's up to us to stay resilient and know that this is our home, the Cape of Good Hope, and if there's anything on earth worth fighting for, this is the place. So thank you so much for being here this evening. You're the types of people that are going to bring that change, and please share that message to 2, 3, 4, 5 people, and it'll make our lives up here a lot easier in making this vision a reality. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jack.
Well, I hope this panel's, convinced you on Cape independence and convinced you to support any party really that's going to support Cape independence in the upcoming elections. Because on May 29th, that is D-Day. That's the day we decide what kind of future are we going to have. Are we going to continue to vote the way we've done for the last 20, 30 years and continue to be governed by the ANC, which will take us down the pathway of becoming a failed state? Or will we break free from those ties and will we vote for a first world future? First world future where we have control over our destiny, where we have control over our borders, where we have control over our taxes, over our security and our economy. Because we can actually use this to build something we've never seen before, something that works for everyone, no matter your background, no matter your colour. The only thing that will matter is the content of your character. And we can put hope back into the Cape of Good Hope. It is possible, and it's only going to be possible if you vote for it. And what we really need is for people, to have hope in themselves, to have confidence in themselves. Because if we can get that to happen, we can really do anything. And I'll just end on a quote from a famous French philosopher, is that hope is when despair is overcome, and we need to overcome despair in this election.
Can I ask you to give a warm hand of applause to our Thank you very much. We had John Steenhuisen of the DA describe CapeXit and Cape Independence as a stupid, unworkable idea. Well, I think that just the cover of our book proves them wrong. Got the flags of 23 countries that are the results of secession. I don't think you can call any of them stupid or unworkable, starting with Switzerland in 1291. In fact, the inside cover of this book proves our point. We give the names, the flags, the details of 23 successful secessions. And that includes the United States of America, it includes Netherlands, who seceded from Spain, Belgium, seceded from Netherlands. It includes Texas, remember the Alamo, and Nicaragua, which seceded from Guatemala, Finland, which seceded from Russia, and I believe your mother came from Finland, Norway, which seceded from Sweden, and many of these secessions peaceful, by the way, too. Ireland. You know, when you think, but the government won't let us. Well, you can be sure the British did not want Ireland to go independent in 1922, but it still happened. The Russians didn't want Finland to go independent in 1917, but it didn't stop them. Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, they broke free of the Soviet Union. Soviet Union did not want them to go free. They showed their support by a Baltic way, a singing revolution. They celebrated their culture. They were so creative. They knew they couldn't beat the Soviet Union militarily. They beat them by singing and by culture, standing together. It's inspiring when you read the examples of successful secessions. And I end with South Sudan, because I was heavily involved in the South Sudan secession. The government of Northern Sudan certainly did not want South Sudan to go free, but they won their freedom many ways, including massive international support for their campaign. All of these things are factors. Social media, our friends, our networks, our convictions can play a key role. We need the economists, we need the politicians, we need the social groupings, but they need us to speak up and to do our part. What we write, what we say, with our friends and family, we can make the difference. I mean, just imagine, even within this room, there's enough of us and our viewers to be able to communicate on our social media platforms, to speak in our church, in our neighborhood, to mobilize our friends and family. We've got enough potential, especially when you get on the digital side that Vaughan was speaking about, to really make a difference. I've always thought Cape Independence was a good idea, but it's gone beyond a good idea. Now it's a matter of survival. We either go down with the SA Titanic, or we launch out in the free and independent Cape of Good Hope. I mean, that's a choice.